Hi, and welcome to the Hindustan Times Facebook chat here today. And we are going to discuss the issue which has been hitting the headline ever since it was discussed and announced on November 8th. Yes, you're right. We are going to talk about demonetization here. I am Shobhan Chatterjee. I am from the political bureau of Hindustan Times, and I'm joined by Mr. Rajesh Mahapatra, a senior journalist of Hindustan Times. The first question which comes to people's mind is when will they be able to withdraw the money? How much money will they like from the ATMs? We have been hearing that by Holi, that is mid of March, the cash, the limits or the transaction limits will be eased off.
Yeah, there is clarity now. The RBI has said that by March 13, you would be able to withdraw as much as you want from the ATMs. This is good news because in the past, what we have seen that the government kept shifting the goalpost. It would be 7 days, 2 weeks, 24,000 now, 24,000 not at one go. I think that sort of added to a lot of uncertainty, and it sort of didn't do well because people won't get a sense of when things are going to be normal. Now, of course, normalcy has got many meanings in this context, but I think the first set of things that people would take to understand what normalcy would mean is that they are able to withdraw as much cash as they want. They are able to work the way they have in the past. So that it is good that now that RBI has come up and given a very clear roadmap that by March 13, which is Holi, and this comes as bringing color back into the life of commerce. People would be all those restrictions, curbs that had come into being after the decision of the government to come up to ban high value currency notes, that would go. So let's hope that this deadline is a real deadline, and this deadline is adhered to. So that would be the first step of normalcy, and that would be the beginning of getting back things on track. Because what we must understand that this was a big disruption, and there are several things that are still not in place, and both government, businesses, people will be struggling to put things back on a normal track, and that would take some more time. But come Holi, at least you would
One
see
part of the
and a very important
right?
part which affects everybody.
Yeah. Do send us questions and watch us at hindustantimes.com here now at Facebook Live, and also follow us at HT Tweets for updates of all the various developments related to demonetization. But I want to ask you one thing that let's go back to what the Prime Minister said and how Prime Minister had defended the demonetization, the entire plan, the process, and how the roadmap of demonetization in his speech this week. In fact, he gave two speeches this week in Parliament, and this was the first time when Prime Minister Modi has spoken about demonetization in Parliament. Let's first look at what he actually said in Lok Sabha, where he spoke first.
अगर आपको कोई बीमारी हो और डॉक्टर कहता है भी ऑपरेशन करना है, ऑपरेशन बहुत जरूरी है, फिर भी वो कहता है पहले भाई शरीर ठीक करना पड़ेगा, डायबिटीज कंट्रोल करना पड़ेगा, डीकना कंट्रोल करना पड़ेगा, 7-8 दिन और मशवरा, फिर बाद में ऑपरेशन करते हैं। जब तक वो स्वस्थ नहीं होता है ऑपरेशन करना नहीं पसंद करता डॉक्टर, कितनी भी गंभीर स्थिति है। डीमोनेटाइजेशन के लिए यह समय इतना पर्याप्त था कि देश की अर्थव्यवस्था तंदुरुस्त थी। अगर
Okay, now we have heard what Prime Minister Narendra Modi said in Lok Sabha while defending the demonetization. Now, he made a few interesting points. One, he has said that he has compared this demonetization to a surgery process. You see that a doctor, before he conducts the surgery, he first goes by the vital parameters of the health, and he said that if the health is tandurust, that is, if the person is healthy, then only the surgery takes place. Do you think that the health of the economy was at pink to conduct this demonetization exercise?
I think it's an interesting analogy that the Prime Minister did. I only hope that he was a good surgeon. I think he understands when you say vital parameters of the economy. I quite disagree with the fact that the economy was in a good health to go for demonetization. So before let's see when and how countries that have decided to demonetize their currency notes, why have they done it so? They actually haven't done it at a time when things were all going good. They have done it at a times there have been situations where inflation was very high. When it has been driven by because there was too much cash in the system, there was too much money changing too few goods. Venezuela is a country which sort of stands out in this respect. There have been countries which have done this when there has been a serious issue with counterfeit notes. Okay, now that has also not been the case with us. We have heard about counterfeit notes, but the counterfeit notes account for a very minuscule proportion of our currency circulation. Then there are very unusual circumstances when such a thing has been done, like in Iraq, when Saddam Hussein was brought down. Of course, all the currency notes bearing his image had to be scrapped from the system. Or when over a period of time your currency has devalued so much that it just becomes impossible to manage a lot of small denomination notes, and you start changing them on a large scale by high denomination notes, which was the case that happened in Afghanistan after the war. Now, in the Indian context, none of these things were there. On the contrary, what was happening was that the economy was just kind of coming up. In certain segments, it was struggling. In certain areas, there was, what we could call green shoots of recovery was being noticed. And this is like a child when he is beginning to walk, or a sprinter beginning to accelerate the pace. You don't bring in and put a hurdle where the child would stumbles upon and falls and takes a long time, injures himself or herself, and then takes a long time to begin walking again, or the sprinter loses out of the race. Now, what we have done is something similar. I do not agree that the economy was in a state to have bear with such a decision. And let's look at a few charts. Coming up. So what we have in front of us is the industrial production. Now we know that the economy has been in a sluggish phase. Private investment has not been picking up. Demand has been sluggish because people haven't had enough money to spend. The last 1 year, and the global economy has been not so benign. Our export demand have not been picking up. So if you look at the chart, it has been yo-yoing. Some months we grew.
So the blue bars are
when we have grown.
When have grown up, and the brown bars, the yellow bars,
when there has been a contraction, year-on-year contraction in industrial output. And if you look at that chart, we were just about picking up. And if you see, there has been October was a very good month. After a long time, you see that tallest of the blue bars. Yes. That's October.
Yes.
And if you see, you just see what has happened in the months thereafter. November, we've seen a sharp fall.
Yeah.
So, things were just about picking up. We shouldn't have disturbed that pace. Now, this is industrial output. Let's go over to the next chart and let's look at the exports. figures, because a large part of the reason in our industrial production being sluggish is because of global economic uncertainties. Our exports have sort of been sluggish for a very, very long time. And if you look at this chart, which sort of kind of tracks from November 2014, exports were on a downward slide. Somewhere around end of 2015, they kind of began to pick up, but that pickup had not stabilized. Correct. If you look at the last figure, that's actually the November figure. So thereabout, it was just picking up in two subsequent months of September and October. Yes. If you see, there has been that upward trend, yeah. and then there has been a sharp fall, and largely because of demonetization. Then let's go over to the next chart and look at. So this is pretty much the story about the growth story, and how the state in which the Indian economy was. It was sort of tracking a steady course of recovery. Why we should not have done something like this? This is not saying that the BP was normal, the patient was in a condition to go in for a surgery. Absolutely not. This is a phase where the patient was recovering, and you needed to stabilize.
We have a few questions. Rashmi Sharma is asking you that what is the positive side of demonetization? Do you see any positive side of demonetization?
I don't think that. We have been seeing empirical evidence as to. Look, when Prime Minister talked about demonetization, the government talked about a lot of things that would come our way. The idea was that a lot of dodgy cash would be destroyed. We know that most of the cash now have come back to the system, so that objective hasn't been achieved. We were told that this would help bring down interest rates. There was one round of interest rate cuts, but then last week the RBI signaled that there are upward pressures building up on the inflationary front, and therefore it would not be looking at any rate cuts in the near future. So that hope has also been dashed. We had an expectation that if this dodgy cash had come into the system and had added to the government's tax revenues, that would have helped the government spend a lot more in the developmental side. But we had the budget that was presented earlier this week. Yeah. We haven't seen a significant spike in government spending, which is what probably the economy now needs as a stimuli. But we saw just a meager 8% increase in government spending. So I don't think the claims or the rationale behind demonetization is actually playing out. Earlier, the debate was based on perception and anecdotes. Now we have got some hard data coming in.
Yeah, actually there is a question that Shivam Sharma is asking, has anyone seen any concrete data from the RBI or the government which backs demonetization?
Well, that's exactly what we are now talking about. Yeah. We looked at the industrial output figures, we looked at the exports figures. They are a direct example. They're the most concrete evidence now we have that we have seen exports slumped in the month of November. We saw industrial production, which had staged a very smart recovery in October. Yeah. That slumped, that contracted by 0.4%. So these are concrete data. And there is another set of data that came in yesterday, which was the January tax collections, indirect tax collections, grew about 17%, I guess. And that's mostly on the back of excise and customs duty collections on fuel and fuel products. And let's look at the chart on the fuel products. So, that's not saying that excise duty collections or indirect tax collections have increased because the economy is doing well. That's because of a very different reason. That's because crude prices in the international markets are firming up. And we have revised our retail prices on petrol and diesel. So therefore, that's pushing up your customs collection, that's pushing up your excise collection. But at the same time, that's also pushing up your inflation. And that's the reason why interest rates cannot go down in the near future.
Yes, there is another interesting question which talks about the traders and also the small-scale industries. Now, Ekam Sahani is asking, small-scale industry traders and wholesalers are bursting very badly, and in a view, to GDP, it has come down to by 2.5%. What do you expect now?
Well, I think this pain is going to continue. But I think, before we go down to those questions, because we were talking about, is Modi right in claiming that the timing of demonetization was correct?
Yes.
We were evaluating the Prime Minister's claim that the economy was in a good health to withstand such a disruptive decision.
Actually, the Prime Minister also backed the statement by saying that had it not been in good health, the entire demonetization exercise would not have been successful. So, on one hand, he's claiming that it is successful. On the other hand, he's claiming that this background or the backdrop for this demonetization was perfect.
I mean,
do you think it's a success?
No, success is measured by, we talked about it, what were the stated objectives, and we do not see. But we see more and more evidence. I would like to take you through one more chart, if we could bring that up. The previous chart was about crude oil prices picking up at the time when this decision was made, and that was not good because, especially, when you have a change of regime happening in the world's largest economy, the United States, where the new president talks about protectionism, where crude oil prices are beginning to firm up, where capital is sort of moving out of the country. It wasn't clearly a good time. This chart shows clearly that the crude prices were just about beginning to firm up around that time, and that would have been a bad timing. Look at the business confidence, what is happening. And I think this is something where we should spend a little time. We know about the policy paralysis phase that sort of marked the last few years of Manmohan Singh's regime.
UPA 2.
Yes, UPA 2. And if you look at this chart, the business confidence index, this is a quarterly index that FICCI, the Federation of Indian Chambers of Commerce and Industries, one of the largest grouping of business houses in the country, they conduct among their members, about what kind of how their sentiments are, what confidence do they have to undertake new investments.
Correct.
Those are the kind of things they sort of check it out. And if you look at this chart, in 2013-14, first quarter, it dipped to one of its lowest in many, many years, to 49. Okay, and that was like when the talk of policy paralysis, the resentment against the UPA government,
the scams,
everything was around it. It began to pick up by after that on the expectation that that the next government could be headed by a dynamic leader like Narendra Modi. Okay, so a lot of hope was riding on him, and we can see that how the business confidence index started climbing up, and it sort of reaches an all-time high of 72 in the April-June quarter of 2014-15. That's the quarter when Modi stormed to power with a historic mandate. And then it yo-yos for some time, then it starts falling because people started sort of getting disillusioned that the hopes that they had
probably because the reforms push was not coming up.
Yes, and that was sort of going down. And then we see, because of some improvement in certain places and because of a few other measures that this government had taken on the financial sector front, on a few initiatives such as Make in India, and a little bit of improvement in the global economic environment, it started building up. And it was just about picking up. And October, the July-September quarter was very good. But then it was just about picking up, only to be hurt very badly by this move to demonetize.
As we see in the last bar.
You have seen a drop to 58.2. That's kind of the same as where it was when the whole policy paralysis phase began during Manmohan Singh's government. So in a way, I am seeing parallels here with the terminal years of the UPA regime. And that's not a very good sign.
Okay, this is one question which has come that Vinita Sharma is asking, what was the right time according to you?
No,
do we really there a need for demonetization in the first place?
No, I don't think
Exactly.
so. I don't think so, and therefore I would not go into that question of right timing. There are many ways the issue of dodgy cash could have been addressed. I think this was economic from an economic standpoint. This is probably one of the last. This should have been one of the last resorts, and there is a reason why former RBI governors have said that this is something that shouldn't have been done.
Yeah. No, it brings me to another question. Now, when you are saying that the timing was wrong, this thing should not have happened. Now, Prime Minister Narendra Modi, in the same speech in Lok Sabha, while he was defending the demonetization, he gave an interesting, the figures. He said that the trading of India, it happens 50% of the trade, of the cash transactions that take place around Diwali, and after that there is a lull. So then he says that this is the time after Diwali when the peak of transaction was over, when the 50% of India's annual transaction takes place during Diwali, and when that was over, then he opted, or then he went for the demonetization. So do you agree to this formula, or this what his conclusion is?
Yeah, well, there are two things he said. One, he said that the economy gets into a lull phase.
Yeah.
And therefore he thought the disruption would be minimal.
Yes.
It's partly true and it's partly not true. Because the demonetization was not about demonetization didn't affect only big companies or corporates and their decision-making process. It affected every individual. It affected the Aam Aadmi. It affected. No segment of the economy was spared. But I take something. He said something else. He said 50% of India's business happens during this phase. I think that's a very, very North Indian view, and I take strong exception to that. Diwali is a festive season, hugely celebrated, and yes, it is true that there is a significant uptick. But we look at the September-October phase as a busy season for business and commerce, because there are several other things. Because there is Durga Puja in August, because there is the first harvest that comes for the farming community, because there are other kinds of festivities that people in the south celebrate, yes. Because there is also the whole thing of the Christmas coming up in the northeast.
Yes.
So October, November, December, that's usually a good quarter. But I think empirically it is wrong that 50% of economic activities happen in this. This only goes to demonstrate that in a parliament you do not expect the leader to be so casual about ferreting out statistics on a serious policy decision. And I think that's a matter of concern. If you ask me what's my concern is it's governments make mistakes, and that's nothing unusual. But what do you do to cover up those mistakes? What do you do to defend those mistakes? Where you distort facts, where you defy basic principles, tried and trusted practices, that's when one begins to worry.
Muhammad Ali asks a question that, in fact, he says that common people with daily wages are immensely affected.
Yeah, it is. It is showing out. In fact, everything that the government now says or does, in a way, sort of reflects. Look at the budget. The finance minister said we are going to be seeing the highest ever allocation for Manrega, the rural job scheme, 48,000 crore. What he didn't say that 48,000 crore is more or less what the government is going to be spending this year, 47,500 crore. And there are people in the government who say that it will be more than 47,500 crore because there is a huge demand now in rural areas for jobs. Exactly. And that demand is because people have lost their jobs in cities and have gone back home and they are not getting calls from their employers to return.
Manrega is seen as a distress job.
Yeah. It's a good thing that the government is spending more money on Manrega, but it's also an indication as to how widespread the distress is, that people are staying back in villages, and that's what is driving up. There are two ways of looking at it.
So we get a few more questions. Mr. Muhammad Ali is also asking us that he's a businessman, he's a stockist, but the business have slowed drastically. Yeah, I think that's what we were talking about.
Yes, I think, you see, the one thing that hasn't been highlighted, India is driven by small and medium enterprises.
Yes.
They are the largest employers. And they are hugely, you may say right or wrong, but the fact of the matter remains that the informal sector is a cash-driven sector. That the small and medium enterprises segment, which creates the maximum jobs, is a cash-driven sector. So something like demonetization hurts them very badly. There is also another important thing. A lot of our business activities at a small scale is driven by informal credit network, and that informal credit network has been completely devastated, completely destroyed. Which is a large, widespread informal credit network is not a good thing. But then we need to work to build a robust formal credit network.
Yes.
Our banks have not been able to build that. Currently, the kind of problems our banks have, where they're struggling with large, huge accumulated bad loans, they will not be able to do anything in this respect.
So we are running short of time, but I think we will take one question. That is Mr. Vasudev Gupta. He is saying that to think black money in form of cash is completely wrong, as most of the people have it in form of property and gold.
I completely we talked about it. We agree with that. Cash accounts for only a small component of black money, and even there, everything seems to have now come back. So the Logic Cash assault hasn't worked. I think there are lots that we can go on talking about, but I think we have to end now. We'll take one last question.
Okay. He says risk to reward ratio. Mr. Vaibhav Mishra, he's saying risk to reward ratio is pathetic.
I quite don't get that. Is he talking about the risk the Prime Minister faces? Well, reward we will see next month when the election results come out. So that would be the first sign of first vote of confidence or the lack of it from the people.
Especially the Uttar Pradesh elections.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
So we'll leave you with the video. Tell us what you think. Keep tracking us. Stay with us. Yeah. We come back again.
Yes. And thank you very much. Always follow us in hindustantimes.com and HT Tweets. Thank you very much. Have a good day.
अगर आपको कोई बीमारी हो और डॉक्टर कहता है भी ऑपरेशन करना है, ऑपरेशन बहुत जरूरी है, फिर भी वो कहता है पहले भाई शरीर ठीक करना पड़ेगा, डायबिटीज कंट्रोल करना पड़ेगा, डीगना कंट्रोल करना पड़ेगा, 7-8 दिन और मशवरा, फिर बाद में ऑपरेशन करते हैं। जब तक वो स्वस्थ नहीं होता है ऑपरेशन करना नहीं पसंद करता डॉक्टर, कितनी भी गंभीर स्थिति हो। डीमोनेटाइजेशन के लिए ये समय इतना पर्याप्त था कि देश की अर्थव्यवस्था तंदुरुस्त थी। अगर